Hello everyone. Welcome back to English Tom. I'm Tommy, and today I want to talk about one of the most frustrating experiences in the entire journey of learning English. You know this feeling. I know you do. You are watching an English film. And you understand it. You follow the story. You laugh at the jokes. You feel the emotion of the scenes. Your comprehension is good. Maybe even very good. Or you are listening to an English podcast. And again, you understand. The words make sense. The ideas are clear. You are following everything without much difficulty. Or someone speaks to you in English. A simple sentence. Something completely normal. And your brain processes it. You understand every word. You know exactly what they are asking. And then they wait for your answer. And something happens. Something that makes no logical sense. Something that feels like a cruel joke that your own brain is playing on you. Nothing comes out. Your mouth opens. Your brain searches. And the words are not there. Or they are there, but they are locked somewhere you cannot reach fast enough. And the silence grows. And the embarrassment grows with it. And you think to yourself, how is this possible? I understood everything they said. I know English. I watch English films. I listen to English every day. Why can I not speak? If that experience is familiar to you, then this lesson is the most important English lesson you will ever watch. Because today, I am going to explain exactly why this happens. The real reason. The scientific reason. The reason that nobody in your English classroom ever told you. And then I am going to give you a complete, practical plan to fix it. Not someday. Today. Starting from the moment this lesson ends. So stay with me. Every part of this lesson matters. Let's begin. The receptor-producer gap. What you are experiencing has a name. And once you understand it, everything will start to make sense. It is called the receptor-producer gap. And it is one of the most common, most misunderstood, and most fixable problems in language learning. Here is what it means. Your brain has two completely separate language systems. Two different sets of neural pathways. Two different processes that feel similar from the outside but are fundamentally different on the inside. The first system is your receptive system. This is the part of your brain that receives language. That processes what it hears and reads. That decodes meaning from words and sentences. When you watch that English film and understand it, your receptive system is doing the work. The second system is your productive system. This is the part of your brain that generates language. That takes a thought or a meaning and converts it into words and sentences. That actually produces speech. When you try to speak English, your productive system is what needs to work. And here is the key thing you need to understand. These two systems are not the same thing. They are not two sides of the same coin. They are two completely different skills. Two completely different brain processes. Two completely different things that need to be trained separately. This is why you can be excellent at understanding English and terrible at speaking it at the same time. Because you have trained your receptive system extensively. But you have barely trained your productive system at all. And no amount of extra listening, extra watching, extra reading will automatically fix your speaking. Because receptive practice does not train productive ability. Only speaking trains speaking. The library analogy. Let me give you an analogy that makes this very clear. Imagine your English knowledge as a library. A massive, beautiful library filled with books, words, grammar patterns, phrases, sentences. Everything you have ever learned or absorbed about English is in this library. Now imagine that this library has two doors. The first door is the input door. This is how things come in. Every time you listen to English, every time you read English, every time you watch English content, new books come in through this door. Your library grows. It gets richer, more complete. The second door is the output door. This is how things go out. When you speak, you go to the output door and you reach for the books you need. The words, the phrases, the structures, and you use them. Here is the problem for most English learners. They have spent years and years filling the library through the input door. Their library is enormous, rich and full of knowledge. But they have almost never used the output door. And here is what happens to a door that is never used. It gets stiff, rusty, hard to open. Even when you know the books are there inside, getting them out quickly and smoothly is difficult. Because the door itself has never been exercised. That is exactly what is happening when you try to speak English and the words won't come. The library is full. The knowledge is there. But the output door is stiff from lack of use. And it will not open fast enough for a real conversation. The solution is not to add more books to the library. The solution is to practice using the output door. Every day. Until it opens smoothly and automatically and without effort. That practice has a name. It is called speaking. And it is the only thing that will fix your speaking. The story of Amara. Let me tell you about Amara. Amara was 27 years old. She lived in Nigeria. She had grown up in an environment where English was everywhere. On television. In school. In government. In business. She had been surrounded by English her entire life. And her English comprehension was remarkable. She could watch American news programs and understand every word. She could read complex English articles and follow every argument. She could understand English speakers from any country, any accent, any speed. By any measure of receptive English ability, Amara was advanced. But when it came to speaking, she experienced something that confused and frustrated her deeply. In conversations with English speakers, she would go quiet. She would understand perfectly what was being said to her. But forming her own responses felt like trying to build a house with her hands tied behind her back. She knew the words were somewhere. She could feel them. Like trying to remember a name that is right on the tip of your tongue. The knowledge was there. But accessing it fast enough, organizing it into real sentences under the pressure of a real conversation, that felt impossible. She described the feeling to me once. She said, "It is like being completely fluent on the inside and completely mute on the outside. My English brain understands everything. But my English voice doesn't exist yet." That description is one of the most accurate things I have ever heard about the receptor-producer gap. Fluent on the inside. Mute on the outside. And Amara's story, like so many learners, is the story of someone who built a magnificent library but never practiced using the output door. I will come back to Amara and tell you what she did to fix this. But first, I need to explain one more layer of this problem. Because the receptor-producer gap is not the only thing going on. The processing speed problem. There is a second component to why you understand English but cannot speak it. And it is related to speed. When you listen to English, your brain has time. Not much time, but enough. The words come in one at a time. Your brain processes them. It builds meaning. It understands. And even if you are slightly slow at processing, even if some words need a fraction of a second longer to decode, it usually doesn't matter. Because listening is a relatively forgiving skill. You can pause, rewind, reread. And even in live conversation, you are receiving the language, not producing it. So slight delays in processing don't make you go silent. But speaking is completely different. Speaking requires you to do something that listening never demands. It requires you to produce language in real time. While you are speaking, you cannot pause and look up a word. You cannot rewind and reconsider your sentence structure. You cannot take 5 minutes to think about the best way to express your idea. The conversation is happening now. The other person is waiting now. And your brain has to search the library, find the right words, put them in the right order, pronounce them correctly, and send them out through the output door all at the same time and all at conversational speed. That is an enormous cognitive demand. And if your productive system has not been trained specifically for that speed and that pressure, it will fail. Not because your English is bad, but because it has never been asked to work that fast before. This is why speaking practice is so different from listening practice. Listening trains reception at any speed. Speaking trains production at conversation speed. And only speaking practice trains speaking speed. The fear multiplier. Now there is one more layer that makes everything worse. And it is the most human layer of all. Fear. When you try to speak English and you feel yourself going slow, when you feel the words not coming fast enough, when you feel the silence growing, fear arrives. Immediately and powerfully. Fear of judgment. Fear of embarrassment. Fear of looking unintelligent. Fear of the other person losing patience. Fear of making mistakes that reveal how limited your English really is. And that fear does something neurological that makes everything worse. Fear activates your stress response. And your stress response, the fight or flight system, literally reduces blood flow to the parts of your brain responsible for language production. The very parts you need most in a conversation go partially offline when you are afraid. This is not weakness. This is biology. It happens to everyone. But it creates a terrible cycle. You try to speak. It is slow. You feel fear. Fear makes it slower. You feel more fear. You go silent. And the next time, the fear arrives earlier. Because your brain has learned that speaking English leads to the fear response. And over time, the fear becomes the biggest barrier. Bigger even than the receptor-producer gap. Bigger than the processing speed problem. Breaking that cycle is part of what today's plan is about. And it is something we are going to address directly and completely. The wrong solutions. Now I want to talk about the solutions that most people try. And why they don't work. Because most learners, when they realize they cannot speak despite understanding English, do one of two things. The first thing they do is study more. They think, my speaking is weak because my English knowledge is not good enough. So I need to learn more vocabulary. More grammar. More phrases. And they go back to their books and their apps and their lists. But we already know why this doesn't work. Adding more books to the library does not fix the output door. The library is not the problem. The door is the problem. And studying more only makes the library bigger. It does not make the door open faster. The second thing learners do is wait. They tell themselves, I am not ready to speak yet. When my English is better, I will start speaking. And they keep consuming English content. More films. More podcasts. More reading. Waiting for the day when they feel ready. But that day never comes. Because the feeling of readiness to speak does not come from knowledge. It comes from speaking experience. You only feel ready to speak when you have spoken enough times that it no longer feels terrifying. And you can only get that experience by speaking. Before you feel ready. Before it feels comfortable. Before the fear goes away. Both of these approaches, studying more and waiting until you are ready, are ways of avoiding the one thing that will actually fix the problem. Speaking. Why watching English films is not enough. Let me address something specifically. Because I know many learners use this as their main English practice. Watching English films and series is valuable. Genuinely valuable. It builds your receptive system. It exposes you to natural speech patterns. It builds your vocabulary and context. It trains your ear. But it will never, on its own, build your speaking ability. And here is why. When you watch a film, your brain is in receive mode. It is decoding, understanding, absorbing. It is not producing. It is not searching the library and sending things out through the output door. No matter how many films you watch, no matter how many hours of English television you consume, your brain will get better and better at receiving English. But your speaking will stay exactly where it is. Because watching is not speaking. Now, there is a modified version of watching that does build speaking ability. And I will talk about it later in this lesson. It is called shadowing. And it converts passive watching into active speaking practice. But regular watching, sitting and absorbing without producing, will not fix your speaking. No matter how much of it you do. The conversation class problem. Many learners, when they realize their speaking is weak, sign up for conversation classes. English speaking courses. Sessions with a teacher where they practice talking. And this is better than studying grammar alone. At least it involves speaking. At least the output door is being used. But conversation classes have a significant limitation. And most learners don't realize it until they have spent a lot of money and time. The limitation is frequency. One conversation class per week is not enough practice to build speaking fluency. Not even close. Because fluency is built through daily repetition. Through your brain processing the act of speaking English hundreds and hundreds of times across many consecutive days. One session per week, with 6 days of silence in between, does not create that repetition. Each class you are almost starting from scratch. The neural pathways built in the last class have had 6 days to weaken. And you make some progress in the class. And then you lose most of it before the next one. This is why people take conversation classes for years and still feel that speaking is hard. It is not that the classes are useless. It is that 1 hour per week is simply not enough frequency. The solution is not more expensive classes. The solution is daily speaking practice. Alone. In your room. Every single day. Free. Accessible. And more effective than any once-a-week class. The 4 steps to closing the gap. Now let me give you the fix. The real fix. The one that addresses all 3 problems we identified. The receptor-producer gap. The processing speed problem. And the fear multiplier. It comes in 4 steps. And together, these 4 steps form a complete system for building speaking ability even when you feel you have none. Step 1. Activate your output door daily. The first step is the most fundamental. You must use your output door every single day. Not once a week. Not when you feel motivated. Not when you have a conversation class. Every single day. And here is the important thing. You do not need another person to do this. In fact, for the first stage of fixing this problem, practicing alone is better than practicing with someone else. Because alone, there is no fear. And without fear, your brain can practice producing English freely, naturally, and at its own developing pace. Here is your daily output activation practice. Every morning, immediately after waking up, speak English for 5 minutes. Out loud. In your room. To nobody. Start with simple things. What you see around you. How you feel. What you are going to do today. Very simple. Very easy. Good morning. I woke up at 7 today. I feel quite tired actually. I didn't sleep very well last night. Today I need to go to work. I have a meeting in the afternoon. I am a little nervous about it, but I think it will be okay. That is 2 minutes of speaking right there. Natural. Simple. Real. And every word that came out of your mouth just went through the output door. Every word is a small exercise for the productive system. Do this every morning. Without exception. Even on the days when you feel tired. Even on the days when your English feels terrible. Even on the days when nothing comes easily. The output door gets easier to open every time you use it. Step 2, the speed training method. Now let me address the processing speed problem. Because it is not enough to just speak. You also need to train your brain to access language faster under pressure. I call this the speed training method. And it is based on a simple principle. The more times your brain retrieves a word or phrase, the faster it can retrieve it next time. Here is how it works. You choose 20 common English phrases. Simple ones that you need frequently in conversations. Things like, "That's a good point. I completely agree. What do you mean exactly? Let me think about that for a moment. I'm not entirely sure, but I think. That's really interesting. Could you give me an example? I see what you mean. Actually, I have a different opinion. Can I ask you something?" 20 phrases. And every day for 1 week, you repeat each phrase 10 times. Out loud. As naturally and as quickly as you comfortably can. Not fast to the point of being unclear. But at a natural conversational speed. The speed at which you want to be able to say them in a real conversation. After 1 week of this daily repetition, these 20 phrases will be available to you instantly. Without searching. Without thinking. They will come automatically when you need them. Then you replace them with 20 new phrases. And repeat the process. Over time, you are building a bank of phrases that your productive system can access at conversational speed. And these automatic phrases are incredibly valuable in real conversations. Because while you are saying an automatic phrase, that's a really interesting point, your brain has a few extra seconds to think about what you actually want to say next. These automatic phrases are the scaffolding of conversational fluency. Step 3, the fear desensitization practice. Now let me address the fear multiplier. Because no matter how much you train your output door and your processing speed, if the fear is still there, it will keep undermining your speaking in real situations. The solution is desensitization. And it works by gradually exposing yourself to increasingly challenging speaking situations. starting so small and so safe that fear barely registers. And slowly, week by week, increasing the challenge. This is the same approach that psychologists use to help people overcome phobias. And it works for speaking fear exactly as it works for any other fear. Here is the progression. Level 1, speak alone in your room. No audience. No recording. Just you and your voice. This is your starting point and your daily foundation. Zero fear. Pure output practice. Level 2, record yourself speaking. Now there is a tiny audience. Yourself, listening back. This adds a small amount of vulnerability. Your brain registers it as slightly more real. Practice this until listening to your own recordings feels comfortable rather than cringing. Level 3, speak in front of a mirror. Watch yourself as you speak. Make eye contact with your reflection. This adds another layer. It trains the physical confidence of speaking. The posture, the facial expression, the eye contact that real conversations require. Level 4, send a voice message in English to someone you trust. A friend who is also learning. A family member. Someone who is safe. This is the first time your English voice goes to another real person. It feels different from speaking alone. More real. More vulnerable. Practice until it feels manageable. Level 5, have a video call or voice call in English with someone you trust. Low stakes. Friendly. Forgiving. Just talking. This is your first real English conversation practice. And it will be uncomfortable. Do it anyway. Level 6. Have English conversations with new people. Language exchange partners. Online conversation groups. Strangers in real life when the opportunity arises. Each level is slightly more challenging than the one before. And you move to the next level only when the current level feels manageable. Not completely comfortable. Just manageable. This gradual exposure teaches your brain that speaking English is not dangerous. It reduces the fear response slowly and systematically. And as the fear decreases, your speaking improves. Because your brain is no longer partially offline during speaking. It is present, calm, and capable. Step 4, the shadowing transformation. Now let me give you the technique that will, faster than any other single practice, transform your speaking from passive understanding to active production. It is called shadowing. And I mentioned it earlier. But now I want to explain it in complete detail. Shadowing is the practice of listening to a native English speaker and repeating what they say as accurately as possible. Matching not just the words but the pronunciation, the rhythm, the speed, the stress, the emotion, the music of their speech. Here is the complete shadowing method. Step 1, choose your audio. Find a short piece of natural English speech. A podcast. A film scene. A YouTube video. Something with clear audio and natural speech. The speaker should not be too fast and not too slow. Something at the speed of a normal conversation. Step 2, listen once without doing anything. Just listen. Get the overall feeling of the speech. The topic. The rhythm. The style. Step 3, listen again, sentence by sentence. After each sentence, pause the audio. Step 4, repeat the sentence out loud. Exactly as the speaker said it. Match everything. Where they paused. How they stressed certain words. How their voice rose and fell. The speed. Even the breath patterns. Step 5, do this sentence again. And again. 3 to 5 times for each sentence, until it feels natural in your mouth. Step 6. Move to the next sentence. Repeat the process. Step 7. At the end, try the whole passage without pausing. Let the speaker lead and you follow as closely as you can. Now, shadowing does something that listening alone cannot do, and something that speaking alone without a model cannot fully achieve. It shows your productive system what natural English sounds like from the inside. Not just from the outside as a listener, but from the inside as a producer. Your mouth learns the physical experience of producing natural English. Your breath learns the rhythm. Your voice learns the music. And over time, that naturalness starts appearing in your own free speech. Not because you are copying, but because your productive system has been shown, repeatedly, what natural English production feels like. Do 15 to 20 minutes of shadowing every single day. And within 4 to 6 weeks, the difference in how your English sounds will surprise you. And more importantly, it will surprise the people who hear you. What Amara did. Now let me come back to Amara, the young woman from Nigeria who was fluent on the inside and mute on the outside. When Amara understood the receptor-producer gap, something shifted in how she saw her situation. She stopped feeling like something was wrong with her. She stopped feeling like she was uniquely broken. She understood that she had simply built one system without building the other. And systems can be built. She started with step 1. Every morning, 5 minutes of speaking alone. Just describing her morning. How she felt. What she was thinking about. The first morning was hard. The words came slowly. The sentences were incomplete. There were long pauses. But she completed the 5 minutes. And the next morning she did it again. After 1 week, the 5 minutes started to feel slightly more natural. The pauses were shorter. The sentences were more complete. The words came a little faster. Not much, but noticeably. She added the speed training method. She chose 20 phrases and repeated them every morning. She felt silly at first. Like a parrot. Like she was not really learning anything. But after 3 days, she noticed something. In her morning speaking practice, those phrases started appearing automatically. She would be speaking and suddenly one of the phrases would come without any searching. Without any deliberate choice. That's really interesting, actually. I think. It just came. By itself. And she understood in that moment what automatic language feels like. And she wanted more of it. She started shadowing. She chose a podcast she enjoyed and spent 15 minutes every day shadowing the speaker. It was exhausting at first. Her mouth felt tired. Her brain felt stretched. But she kept going. At the end of the first month, she had a language exchange call with someone from Australia. Her first real English conversation in years. She was nervous. Her hands were cold. The fear was real. But something was different from before. When the Australian woman asked her a question, the answer came. Not perfectly. Not fast. But it came. The output door opened. And things came out. They talked for 20 minutes. And when the call ended, Amara sat quietly for a long moment. Then she smiled. A deep, real, full smile. Because she understood something that she had not understood before. She had always been an English speaker. She just hadn't known how to get the English out. Now she was learning. And it was working. 6 months after starting her output practice, Amara had regular English conversations with people from 6 different countries. Her speaking was natural, flowing, comfortable. Not perfect, but genuinely fluent. And when people who knew her before heard her speak English, they were astonished. "When did you learn to speak like that?" they asked. And she would smile and say something that I think is one of the most important things anyone has ever said to me about language learning. She said, "I didn't learn to speak English. I learned to stop getting in my own way. The English was always there. I just had to open the door." Going beyond the basics. Now that you have the 4 core steps, let me give you some advanced strategies that will accelerate your progress even further. These are the things that take you from fixing the receptor-producer gap to genuinely thriving as an English speaker. Strategy 1: the Think Aloud practice. This is an extension of your daily speaking practice. And it is one of the most powerful habits you can build. The Think Aloud practice means narrating your thoughts in English as you go through your day. Not out loud necessarily. In your mind. But in English. Not your native language. English. When you are making breakfast, "I'm going to make eggs today. I need to check if there are enough in the fridge. Actually, I only have 2. That's enough for now. I'll add some bread as well. When you are commuting, the train is quite crowded this morning. I managed to get a seat though, which is nice. The man sitting next to me is reading a newspaper. I wonder what the news is today. When you are working, I need to finish this report before lunch. I've been procrastinating on it all morning. I really need to focus for the next hour." This practice does something that formal speaking practice cannot fully replicate. It connects English directly to your moment-to-moment experience of living. It makes English the language of your inner world. Not just the language you perform in practice sessions. And when English becomes your inner language, the gap between understanding and speaking begins to close from the inside. Because you are no longer translating from your native language to English when you speak. You are simply expressing thoughts that were already in English. Strategy 2: the reaction practice. One of the most specific difficulties in real conversations is reacting. Responding in the moment to something unexpected. Something you didn't prepare for. This is where many learners go silent even when their general speaking is improving. Because their practice has been about producing planned speech. But real conversations require unplanned, reactive speech. The reaction practice trains exactly this. Here is how to do it. Find any English content where people are talking. A podcast, a talk show, a documentary. Listen to it. And at random moments, pause it. And react out loud to whatever was just said. If someone said something you agree with, yes, absolutely. I think that's completely true. In fact, if someone said something you disagree with, I'm not sure about that. I actually think. If someone said something surprising, really? I had no idea. That's fascinating actually. If someone asked a question, answer it. Out loud. As if they asked you directly. This practice trains your brain to generate reactive language. Unplanned, spontaneous, immediate English responses. And that is exactly what real conversations require. Do 10 minutes of reaction practice every day and watch how much more comfortable you become in real English conversations. Strategy 3: the mistake catalog. This strategy is for learners who are already doing some speaking practice and want to improve more precisely and effectively. When you record your speaking practice, Listen back and notice your recurring mistakes. Not all mistakes. The recurring ones. The ones that happen again and again. Maybe you always confuse I was and I were. Maybe you always say I am agree instead of I agree. Maybe you always use the wrong preposition in a particular phrase. These recurring mistakes are patterns in your productive system that need specific attention. Write them down. Your personal mistake catalog. Then for each mistake, write the correct version. And practice that correct version specifically. Say it 20 times. In different sentences. In different contexts. When you target your specific recurring mistakes, you are fixing the specific places where your productive system is going wrong. And that targeted fixing is far more efficient than general practice. You don't need to fix every mistake. Just the recurring ones. Fix those and your English accuracy improves dramatically. Strategy 4: The Conversation Debrief. This strategy is for after real English conversations. And it is something most learners never do. But it makes every conversation 3 times more valuable as a learning experience. Immediately after an English conversation, while it is still fresh, spend 5 minutes reflecting on it. Out loud. In English. Ask yourself, what went well in that conversation? What sentences came naturally? What moments felt comfortable and fluent? What was difficult? Where did I go silent? Where did I search for words and not find them? What did I want to say but couldn't? What words or phrases was I missing? If I could have that conversation again, what would I say differently? Then practice saying those things. The things you couldn't say in the moment. Say them now. Out loud. Practice the version of the conversation where you said everything perfectly. This debrief process turns every conversation into a targeted lesson. It shows you exactly what your productive system needs to work on. And it gives you immediate practice with those specific gaps. Over time, the things you couldn't say become the things you can say. Because you practiced them right after the moment when you needed them most. Putting it all together. Now let me give you a complete daily practice plan. Something concrete that you can start today. Right now. After this lesson ends. This plan is designed specifically to close the receptor-producer gap. To build your processing speed. And to reduce your speaking fear. All 3. Every day. Morning practice, 20 minutes. Wake up. Before anything else. 20 minutes. The first 5 minutes, free speaking. Talk about your morning. How you feel. What you are thinking about. What you are going to do today. No preparation. No script. Just speak. Open the output door first thing every morning. The next 10 minutes, shadowing. Choose a piece of English audio. Shadow it. Sentence by sentence. Match the speaker completely. Train your mouth. Train your rhythm. Train your productive system with natural English models. The final 5 minutes, speed phrases. Repeat your 20 phrases 10 times each. Quickly. Naturally. Until they feel completely automatic. 20 minutes. Every morning. No exceptions. Afternoon practice, woven in. During your day, activate the think aloud practice. Narrate your thoughts in English in your mind. Let English become the language of your inner experience. When you have a spare moment, a few minutes on the bus or a break at work, do a quick reaction practice. Find 1 minute of English audio and react to it out loud. Keep English entering your ears through your commute, your lunch, your breaks. But now you are also producing, thinking, reacting, not just receiving. Evening practice, 15 minutes. The first 5 minutes, speaking journal. Record yourself talking about your day. How it went. What happened. What you felt. What you are thinking about. Out loud. Recorded. The next 5 minutes, conversation debrief, if you had any English interaction today. Reflect on it. Practice what you couldn't say. The final 5 minutes, plan tomorrow's speaking topics. What will you talk about in your morning free speaking? Have a small topic ready so you don't spend the first minute trying to think of what to say. 15 minutes in the evening. Combined with 20 minutes in the morning. That is 35 minutes of daily speaking practice. And 35 minutes of daily speaking practice, done consistently every day, will transform your English speaking ability faster than anything else you can do. Guaranteed. The first week. In the first week, be gentle with yourself. The output door is stiff. Things will come slowly. There will be pauses and gaps and moments of frustration. That is normal. That is exactly what the beginning of this process feels like. Just keep going. Use the door every day. And every day it will open a little more easily. The truth about where your English is. Before we finish today, I want to say something to you directly. Something important. Your English is not as bad as you think it is. I mean that. Truly. The gap between understanding and speaking has made you feel like your English is poor. Like you don't know enough. Like you are behind. Like you are failing. But your understanding, the depth of English that you have already absorbed, is not a small thing. It is a foundation. A rich, real, powerful foundation. The library is full. You just need to start using the output door. And the moment you start using it, every day, consistently and courageously, you will discover something that will change how you see yourself. The English was always there. Just waiting for you to let it out. Amara discovered this. And she went from fluent on the inside and mute on the outside to genuinely, naturally, confidently speaking English in conversations with people from around the world. And she did it not by learning more English, but by speaking the English she already had. You can do the same. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to do one thing. Set your alarm for 5 minutes earlier than usual tomorrow morning. And when that alarm rings, before your phone, before social media, before anything else, sit up in your bed and speak. In English. Out loud. For 5 minutes. Anything. Everything. Whatever comes. Open the door. Just once. Just tomorrow morning. And then do it again the next morning. And the one after that. And one day, not too far from now, you will be in the middle of an English conversation. And you will notice something beautiful. The words are coming. Naturally. Without forcing. Without searching. Without fear. The door is open. And English Tom will be here every step of the way. Subscribe if you haven't already. Because on this channel, we don't just talk about English. We fix English. We build English. We speak English. Together. Comment below and tell me, when was the last time you went silent in an English conversation? And after today's lesson, what are you going to do about it? I'm Tommy. and I will see you in the next lesson. The English is already inside you. Today, we start letting it out.